Hi there, everybody. My name is Kate, and welcome to my channel, Trinergy Awakens Naturally. So we are at 11 Mile Reservoir in Lake George, Colorado today. And guess what? Geography lesson is over. Because what I do whenever I'm out in my world is when something happens that catches me and teaches me a nice spiritual lesson, I like to share that. It happens quite a bit, and I don't share every single one of them. However, this one was profound to me. That, wow, that's a lot of assumption about me. So I'm out walking my dog, and I have him on a leash. However, I let go of the leash. There isn't a leash law in this particular park that I'm aware of, and so I have him, just with the leash dropped off, and he's just walking along, and I keep my eye on him, and I ask him to, wait up for me whenever I see him moving out a little bit too far away from me, and he's good about that. So at any rate, and I don't let him just run up into campsites and things like that. And so I could see we were coming up on a campsite on this trail. We've never walked on this trail. We've been to 11 Mile Reservoir a million times. However, we haven't been to this side of the park. Magically, it just appeared today. First time. Love it. And we're on Black Bear Loop, so this is fun. Lots of good symbolism going on here. However, what happened is we were walking up into this campsite area. There's multiple campsites just all surrounding a cove, on the lake. And so I picked up the leash, and I happened to hear a dog just as I did, and thought, thank you, glad that I heard myself say, pick up that leash right now, and don't wait. And so I picked up the leash, looked at my bearing, checked my bearing to see where we were on the trail. And yes, in fact, we are where the campsites are, blah, blah, blah. I've confirmed where I am. It's not the boogeyman around the corner growling at me. It's not Sasquatch, more than likely. And so I start walking, and there's a little dog there and two older women. And the lady with the dog on the leash is sitting down, and the other one's standing up. And the one that's sitting down, she stands up and she gets, kind of funky. And I said, my dog's friendly. He's not gonna, come tearing your dog up or anything. And she didn't say anything. She just looked really awkward, like sometimes people, I don't know what I'm catching them in the middle of. Whatever you're doing, lady, I don't know. However, I know what I'm doing, which is not allowing my dog to come over and maul you or your dog. We are just passing through. Thank you. However, she kind of smiled, and it just, well, some of us are just socially awkward as fuck. Maybe that's her. Give this woman a chance not to be, just brushed off, entirely. So, I had to walk by on the trail. There's only so much room, you can have on a trail, and I needed to walk by, and I said, he's friendly. He's, not going to hurt your dog. And I've got him, and he's in a vest, so I can grab the harness by the handle on the top, like he's significantly larger. I mean, these are all the things I'm thinking is I already know how to handle my dog. He's not a, canine that's trained by the military or anything. However, I know him, and this is a fine, whatever is weirding out in you. And I still wasn't sure, is this just her being socially awkward? She's elderly. She feels a little threatened, that there's not many people on this trail. I mean, there's 1,000 reasons why someone would look weird, and I don't know what any one of them is unless they tell me that, and I'm not going to be mind reading your ass to find out, And so anyway, I started to walk by, and Hondo, kind of, jumped up a little bit, and I pulled him back, and as we were approaching where we were going, I said, is it okay if, he passes by, if he goes over? And she didn't say anything. She just stood there, and when he jumped up, I was like super excited. He's on the spectrum also. He's certainly very neurodivergent and awkward as fuck as well. This woman reared back. She pulled back, and she looked like, shark attack. Oh my God. And so I just yanked him by the handle on the top and moved him out of the way. And I still needed to readjust what I was doing. I was trying not to just stand there and do all my business, checking my bearing and where we were going on the trail from there, right there with that dog, right in front of us. So I moved out of the way, and it was closer to the friend or to the person that was with her. And that person, reached down and started petting him and my dog. And I was like, okay, whatever. And she was kind of chatty. She was just, saying, oh, well, I hope you and your mommy enjoy the trip. And it sounded like, country club material. Honestly, it sounded like something my mother-in-law would have said when I was married, that kind of terse, polite conversation garbage. And I was like, whatever, it's fine. But I turned around and looked at the lady, and I said, you guys, have a nice afternoon or whatever. And the woman, I said, is your dog not friendly or something, or is she frightened? You know, it all happened so fast, I'm not sure. But she said, no, don't you hear her growling? Didn't you see her growling? Like, I'm supposed to know. You know, I'm still was trying to pick it apart with, I'm sorry, are you having a moment? You know, do I need to call someone? Do you need a hug? You know, need a Xanax? You need, what do you need, lady? Because, you know, I'm really not a part of it. I'm not sure what your issue is, but your friend's sitting there chatting, and I'm just trying to find out where the hell I am on the map. And I really don't care about your dog. My dog cares about your dog, but I don't care about him caring about your dog. And I wish you wouldn't care about any of it. Just move out with your dog, you know, move out of the trail and get the out of my way. But what occurred to me is this woman, after I processed it, you know, a few minutes after I left that area, I was thinking, oh, her face and all of that. Hondo has a vote in this. Her face in that was expressing and registering anxiety that I didn't know what that was. And even though I'm an empath and I can tell a whole bunch of stuff, I'm not open for business to be reading people's effing mind, you know? Like, I'm not there to read your mind or try to interpret or dig into your world, you know, empathically to figure out what's wrong with you, with me. You know, I'm just not. Whenever I see that stuff, I just kind of keep it moving and, you know, be polite. And I'm not going to be a jackass just because you're having a moment, because I don't know what's going on behind those eyeballs, and I don't even know if it's related to me. Most of the time, it's not related to me, and even if you think it is, it's not related to me, and I'm going to make damn sure it's not related to me by moving out of the vicinity immediately. So what I heard, though, you know, was tracking in, is that she's saying, do you not see that she was growling and blah, blah, blah? Like, no, I didn't see any of that. She didn't growl until Hondo made a play for, hey, are we going to walk over there? Which was a cue on my part of, oh, we're headed this way. We're not headed that way. It was my bad, you know, but she was wanting me to read her mind. She was wanting me to take her interpretive cues, you know, like, lady, you're going to need some cue cards with some writing on that shit, because I don't know what you mean by all that, you know, look of like anxiety and stuff. There's bears out here. You could have just been walked up on by a bear for all I know. Or maybe your friend just popped you in the mouth. I have no idea what's going on with you. However, she wanted me to already assume and know that her quiet mouth was going to mean something to me, and I'm going to interpret her body language to mean something, or, you know, whatever. And I thought, are you just looking for a reason to be mad and go into country club mode about how you're going to, you know, grouch about somebody on a trail somewhere in the middle of this beautiful lake, in this beautiful park? However, I walked away and I thought, how did I miss that? What did I miss in that? That, you know, did I truly miss the cues of this dog was just losing her mind? And I realized that, no, the old lady was losing her mind with what she thought could happen. She felt afraid that my dog, who very, very much outmatched her dog in terms of weight and goofy, you know, this dude's got 4 legs that all go in 4 different directions, you know, he's not in attack mode ever, even when he thinks he is. I'm not worried. He's in clobber mode. He has a better chance of clobbering somebody or something. And so, but I had, you know, I had hold of it, and it never once looked like it was going to be lost. However, her anxiety and her weirdness about how she felt of what the attack dog that wasn't in front of her, that wasn't going to do anything to her dog, she was down the road with something, already assuming that based on her, you know, shut mouth and her behavior and, you know, all of this, somebody's supposed to read her mind, you know? And I was thinking, well, how come I didn't get the energy? And it's, oh, you did get the energy. It's just that you don't attach to that shit. You're not going to read it and attach to it. That's why, is you noted it, you saw it, and you just brushed it off and said, oh, that doesn't belong to me. And that woman really wanted it to belong to me. She really did. She wanted it to belong to me because there wasn't any dirt there. There wasn't anything to see. There's nothing here. Keep it moving. My dog just jumped up a little bit from, you know, half a mile away, for God's sakes. We weren't even close. We weren't in reach distance. We were outside the zone, you know, the 6-foot perimeter. We were well outside of that. And her friend was engaging us. It was a very strange time to look at me like I had just impolitely burst into the public area that we were in. And hammered down and threatened her. However, what I'm saying is that there are so many times when we encounter people that they just assume that we're going to read their mind, or that they assume that I know what her issue is with her and her dog. I have no idea what her trauma is. Maybe she's lost a dog to somebody else, chewing it up in front of her. I have no idea. However, if somebody is running in that kind of fear, I'm going to feel it, sense it, and note it, perhaps. However, if I'm smart, which I am now, I'm not going to stand down and, back off of being me or back down in any part of me with, I'm going to be polite to your friend who's talking and I'm going to spend another 20 seconds maybe getting my stuff together before I move out. However, that was 20 seconds of interminable, just, oh my God, for her, just don't you hear growling or something like that. And like, yeah, I heard the growling. That's why I stepped away another 10 feet, to get my bearing, because I'm not going to run away from here, to satisfy your fear or even the fear of your dog. Your dog weighs, 25 pounds. And, I'm not worried about what's going to happen to my dog. I know that even if your dog does waddle on over here, that Hondo just wants to play and he's not going to be allowed to. And the minute that I see that turn into something that's scaled to that degree, I'll move out smartly. However, I can see that you don't play this game of critical thinking with me the same way. However, I'm not going to play the game of anxiety and, oh my God, crisis management with somebody else. It's not a crisis to manage. It's the only crisis that was happening was in that woman's mind. And then she was mad because she wants me to assume some, thing about me, some idiocy of me that I didn't see, I didn't read, I didn't understand. 11, thank you. I didn't understand, or I didn't pay attention, or that she'd given the warning that the dog, like, okay, in the 5 seconds that we were, breezing on by, yeah, that's why I stepped out of the way. But did you think I was supposed to become a billy goat with my dog and then suddenly scale rocks and shit in order to make this? I mean, it was so illogical, and it just blew my mind a bit, honestly. And I thought, what did I miss? You didn't miss anything. It's a perfect opportunity, Kate, to see that there are people who just want to dump their stuff on other people, especially if they see somebody who's solid, who's confident, who walks with their dog, freely, etc. And she was a rigid-looking, country club-looking lady. And I don't mean to make a blanket statement. It's just that my understanding of when I've been in that situation has been some uptight folks that were very locked and rigid and very much on the rules, etc. And there's her friend trying to be engaging. I'm like, wow, if you guys can be the balance of, dark and night, or dark and light, and left and right, etc., of how this is playing out. And I'm gonna just hold the balance here of, okay, well, enjoy your day and try not to melt away, etc. And then walk away going, did I miss something? No, you didn't miss anything at all. It was a perfect teaching, a perfect observation to see someone else who felt anxiety about something that I'm not joining that with you. I don't want to take that home with me, and I don't have to take it home for you. You don't have to take it home either. However, do you suppose that that woman was going to be interested in doing anything else with her world, hearing anything else, or receiving anything else except, what she already decided she was going to, which is that my dog's threatened, I'm threatened, and oh my God, how come this idiot on the trail couldn't figure this out? And didn't you see all the signs? Yeah, okay. Well, I'm going to hand that back politely. That's what in spiritual land they sometimes call return to sender. And I don't mean that to sound hateful. I mean that that doesn't even land here, lady. There's no mail received here from that kind of nonsense. I don't take junk mail. You must be kidding. So return to sender just means she got turned whenever, in pissy when I didn't engage her or make eye contact with her. I'm like, oh, this is foolishness. This woman wants me to be doing something with her, like a bear dance or something, and there's no ball out here, and I don't hear happy music and shit, so no thank you. And it made her mad, and she was just fussing, making noise when I walked away, and I thought, okay, what is that for me to learn? Because I'm not burned about it. Then there's something for me to learn, though. If I'm, burned and really hacked off by it, that's more of a lesson of, wow, I got some tender spot in me hanging out that needs some attention immediately. That's almost humorous in a very annoying kind of way, in a pesky fly kind of way. That's almost amusing. Let's think about that and get that. And it's not, mean. I don't mean for it to sound mean that she'd have trauma or she'd have, some issue. However, it's quite possible, too, that sometimes just people are persnickety as fuck, and they don't want anybody to have fun around them, and you're not going to, and I'm going to do everything I can to spoil what you're doing. And I don't know what she was doing, because I didn't empath in that direction. I empathed my ass down the trail, sat down, and now my dog's ready to move on from the trail after talking about it for a minute. So anyway, I hope that you enjoy your day no matter what part of the day you're in, and remember to get within your skin, because you're divine. It's absolutely gorgeous, so balanced and neutral all the time. If we get in line with it, it makes it much easier to find that. So So take care of yourselves, and I will see you again next time. Goodbye, beautiful friends. Mwah.